Well, I'm getting ready to set up and make a little dash panel here with all the different gauges. And again, the backhoe did not come with any sort of a dash panel. It did have a dash panel, but kind of a silly example here. But you can see they've got some gauges and everything they just threw in there. They never hooked them on up. And that tachometer there is really for Kenworth, and it's really supposed to run off your alternator. So there's just, this really wasn't the right setup for the backhoe. And I went on out and picked up a good set of gauges, and I've got a tachometer gauge here. That's an oil temperature. For the water temperature, I have an oil temperature. That's actually the temperature sensor that goes in front of the radiator for the cooler. I've got a fuel gauge. This is actually this gauge, and that gauge are for a Massey Ferguson. JCB and Perkins and Massey Ferguson are all more or less under the same umbrella. They're all British manufactured, and the parts between them are pretty much interchangeable. And so I'm hoping that the fuel gauge, I can just hook that on up. I may have to change the resistor, put a resistor in there, or maybe have to adjust a little bit. I don't know, but we'll find out. And of course, you have oil pressure, voltage, and whatnot. All these sensors are electrical in nature. I wanted to get an electrical sensor because, especially for the temperatures and the pressure, there's just such a long distance between the engine itself and the dash. In fact, it's something on the order of 8 foot of length. And the sensors, if you have any sort of a mechanical sensor, you just can't get the temperature sensor to go that far. There's typically maybe like a 4 foot length for the mechanical sensor. As far as like the oil pressure sensor, you can get that little Teflon tube, but again, those are only 72 inches long. You need something longer than that. So electrical is just really the way to go. And anyway, I got these gauges here on eBay, all of them for the most part from eBay. So we'll see how this all goes together. And I also bought an aluminum plate. This is like an 1/8 inch, and got it all cut on out. And really, if I were to try to do this right, here's the actual console itself. I'm not so sure if you can see that very well, but nonetheless, you get the idea. It goes on up in there. So I'm going to go ahead and put all the gauges in here. After we get it all laid on out, I may actually have some room for some switches. So we'll see how this works. When I lay it all on out. What am I using for cutting the holes? I'm going to be using, just a regular hole cutter. Aluminum's pretty soft. I also have a different type of cutter that, more or less is based on circular type of cutter. For this isn't the actual one. There's another one here someplace that I'll be using to cut out this particular larger gauge, which is on the order of, I think it's like 3 5/16 diameter hole. So this is the before. And of course, at the end of it, I'll show you the after. So I think that's pretty much it. I wanted to say one other thing about the actual gauge itself. This is the JCB gauge that came with the backhoe. And the core, this mechanical core, that spring piece is actually broken, so I needed to replace this anyway. And I found an outfit to actually take the overall length of this cable, and actually they used one of the connectors, the threaded connectors on one end, cut it off, and use that for this new cable. So this new cable has the right connections. The one end, of course, is going to go on to the pickup sensor on the Perkins engine. The other one, of course, is going to go into the gauge. And I sent both the gauge itself as well as the pickup sensor and the cable. And they went ahead and and fixed me on up. So it actually is quite nice. I think I paid like $120 for the cable itself with shipping. Well, anyway, it's something right around there, $100. So if you're interested in swapping out your gauges and you need to change the OEM style connection to the gauge as well as the gauge itself, rest assured you can actually find companies out there that will make your custom cable that connects your pickup sensor to your gauge itself. And it's pretty reasonable too. When you compare what it costs to like a 4-foot or 5-foot cable, I think it's something on the order of like $50, and this is an 8-foot cable, so it's not too bad. So that's just an FYI. Well, this is essentially where I'm at right now. I'm getting ready to start putting this together. This is the dash panel for the JCB Backhoe tractor. I'm also going to put some switches in here. Of course, this is just aluminum plate, so I'll go ahead and mount this on in. Of course, those are some of the gauges. And so that's pretty much where I'm at. I'll also take a picture here or some video of the actual wire harness to give you some idea about the wire harness mess that there is. Well, just a quick little video of what it looks like so far. I've got all my holes cut for each one of the individual switches and indicator lights, and I also went through and stamped what's what on this. Next step really is to put the gauges on in and the switches and wire it all on up and hook it on up to the essentially a wire harness connector. So we'll see how this goes. So that's where I'm at right now. Well, here's a quick little clip of what it looks like right now. I've got the 2 temperature gauges up in the left-hand corner. One of them's for the engine, the other one's for actually there's a temperature sensor at the transmission cooler, which is in front of the radiator. Of course, you got the tach, you got a voltage on the next over to the right, and then on the very far right you got the oil pressure, and then lower left we've got the fuel gauge. And of course you got left blinker, right blinker. Of course that's for high beam. This is the push starter for the thermostat, which is sort of a glow plug. Got a little LED wired in with it, so you press it. Of course it only works when the key is going to be on. You also have a couple other sensors. One of them is a transmission pressure sensor that's on top of the transmission. And then, of course, you've got the neutral which is another switch that comes for the transmission. And as far as what it looks like in the back, pretty much a wire mess. Fortunately, it all comes out up to a connector there that I'll plug on in. I also have the 10 gauge wires. Those are for the headlights and the low beam, high beam, and of course the rear light that goes in the back where the backhoe part is. So I think that pretty much covers this part. Next step really is to start putting this together, wiring on in, and see how it looks. So that's it. Rear light, backlight light, and a parking light.